All right, to pick up where we left off with Erikson's ego theory, we just got done doing industry and inferiority, so identity versus role confusion. So this is going to happen between the age groups of 12 and 20. So think of what's happening during the ages of 12 and 20. All right, we have our adolescents, our teenagers are here, very young adults. We still call them kids actually at this age, even up to 20. But anyway, so identity. So I'm trying to figure out, who the heck am I? Like, where do I fit in this puzzle called life? Where am I going to insert myself in this life? Who am I? All right. So this is figuring out that versus role confusion. Okay. So number of things can cause role confusion, right? We have just that insecurities in being a teenager yourself when you were one. We just have normal insecurities, but things that can affect that are environmental things, trauma things, learning disabilities, all kinds of things can cause role confusion. So during this time is when we're supposed to develop that identity, and we don't. And so guys, if something happens at some point with that stage and it's not met totally, the person's always throughout their life going to be bouncing in and out of it, attempting to try to meet it, or becoming totally closed off to the idea of trying to meet it. And this is a subconscious thing. Somebody can get a lot of work, for their mental health and end up growing and thriving and meeting all the needs that maybe they didn't meet. But if I don't get the identity versus role confusion between 12 and 20, I'm going to still try to meet it at some point if I decide to work on myself, or I'm going to end up with all these second things every time with the different stages. So just because they're supposed to meet it during that stage doesn't mean that they can't meet it somewhere else. They may be able to meet it elsewhere. Okay, so then ages 20 to 35 is intimacy versus isolation. And one thing I want to get straight is that intimacy does not mean sexual, all right? It can, but it doesn't. Intimacy is how close I am with other individuals in my life. How well do they know me and how well do I know them? We're intimate, okay? So everybody's got a level of intimacy with some people in their life. It can be a very low level of intimacy, or it can be a very high level of intimacy. So your spouse is, because that, or whomever, your partner is your sexual partner. So they obviously are going to know you a little bit differently than what other people that you're intimate with will. So when we talk about intimacy, don't jump straight to that means a sexual relationship, because it absolutely doesn't. It's how well I know somebody and how well they know me. How much do I share with them? How integrated am I in their lives? So, for us that are parents, we're very intimate with our children. We know them well and we show them much of us, but obviously we are not sexual. So don't get that confused when you hear the word intimacy. Don't automatically think, well, that means if I'm intimate with somebody that I'm sexual with that person. It doesn't. So intimacy versus isolation. So the 20 to 35 age range is typically when a person, meets what'll end up being their long-term family, friends, their spouse, or whomever their life partner is going to be, and they start having children during this age group, typically. So that versus isolation. Somebody who does not, get to know people well, does not have close friendships, does not have supportive family, does not end up finding a spouse, does not end up having children. They could be at risk for isolation. Here's the thing though, somebody can be single and not have any children and still have a very healthy, intimate life with people. Okay, so just because they don't end up having those things doesn't mean they're going to be isolative. So on the flip side of that, somebody could be married with kids and not be intimate. They could be isolative. So there's no one cookie cutter way for this, but just make sure you understand the word intimacy and that you don't think automatically just sexual. So that's a 15-year process according to Erikson. And then we have the 35 to 65. So this is the big one. This is living the life right here. 35 to 65 is what we're going to consider. You've already got the building blocks set up for your life. So now I have generativity versus self-absorption. I think it also used to be called stagnation, which would mean stagnation is like I'm just kind of stuck. stuck in this one spot and I'm not progressing forward at all. But they also use the word self-absorption here. So that's another way to think of self-absorption. Sometimes when we say somebody's self-absorbed, they're all only into themselves. The other word for this was stagnation. So they're used pretty interchangeably. But generivity is like basically the building, right? I have my building blocks. My foundation is there. Hopefully I established that between my 12 to 35 period. And now I'm building onto that. And this is all the things that I'm doing with my life. It's me, like for instance, I'll just use myself as an example. I've been a nurse. I mean, I still am a nurse. I don't work very much in my field anymore, but I'm a nurse. I'm a teacher. I'm a mother. I'm a wife. I'm a colleague. I'm a friend. So all these things in my life give me a whole picture that I'm able to build on, okay? I'm able to build with all these things versus stagnation or self-absorption. I'm no longer building. I'm not moving forward. I'm not working on me. I'm just kind of stuck. So that's a long period. That's the living of the life, essentially. And then you have integrity versus despair, 65 plus. So normally when we think of integrity, we think of, doing the right thing. And yes, that is, but this integrity is a little bit different. It's I'm trying to put it in good words. It's the person is looking back essentially to say, did I live a good life or did I not? Is the things that the choices I've done, the things that I've done, the choices I made, am I okay with it? Because obviously all lives have good and bad about them, all right? We have traumas, we have things that we choose to do that are not right. So I look back and say, on the whole, how have I done? How am I doing? And so if somebody's in despair, they look back and they say, I was horrible my whole life. I never made good decisions. I couldn't keep intimate relationships. I didn't build as a whole great, rounded person. I was very self-absorbed. And so now everything just sucks and I hate myself and I wish I wasn't here. Let's say, for instance, that's despair versus integrity, looking back and saying, on the whole, I handled things the best I could. And I'm proud of what I did. And I'm still, going to enjoy the rest of this life that I have, because 65 essentially today is young now. So that's going to last all the way through until whenever the person, were to pass away. So that's a little bit different than the integrity we're used to talking to. And so this right here is just saying that Erikson's theory helps nurses to determine what kind of interventions are most likely to be effective, because like our patients at Brighton that are given homework each night by their therapist or a nurse or somebody, we cannot have them try to do something that if they're in self-absorption, they would be like for somebody who's got a well-established, oh my gosh, I just lost it, generivity. So, we have to tailor those interventions towards our patients that will be effective depending on what stages they met or did not meet. Here's just another, here's a chart for you for it, same thing that's listed right here, no table 2 on page 23. And then so I'm just briefly touching on Sullivan's interpersonal theory, and the theory states that the purpose of all behavior is to get needs met through interpersonal interactions and to reduce or avoid anxiety. And then you have your definitions of both of those words here. Anxiety, the definition, any painful feeling or emotion that arises from social insecurity or prevents biological needs from being met. And then security operations. These are measures that a person employs to reduce anxiety and enhance security. So that essentially is defense mechanisms, right? Things that I'm going to do to try to feel safer and to not have that anxiety. And the reason that I bring him up is because Hildegard Paplau is a nursing theorist who developed a theory based on Sullivan's work. So she says we're a participant observer. So the nurse interacts as an authentic human with the patient. We have respect for the patient. We have unconditional acceptance, okay? That's really important, guys, unconditional acceptance. And we have empathy, not sympathy, all right? So this is how we're going to be able to be a help to our patients. This is how we're going to be therapeutic to our patients. We interact authentically, we respect the patient, we have an unconditional acceptance for them, and we have empathy for their situation. So Paplau's was influenced by Sullivan's work. She says the art of nursing is to provide care, compassion, and advocacy, and enhance comfort and well-being. This is all rounded for all patients, guys, but she was specifically talking about psychiatric. And then the science of nursing, application to the knowledge of understanding a broad range of human problems and psychosocial phenomenon, intervening and relieving patient suffering and promoting growth, and care for a person as well as the illness. Think exclusively of patients as persons, not as disease processes. And we've been talking about that. It's important. And then so Paplau says on page 25, the nurse observes and listens to the patient, developing impressions about the meaning of the patient's situation. By employing this process, the nurse is able to view the patient as a unique individual. The nurse's inferences are then validated with the patient for accuracy. So that's really important, guys. That's what we are doing, and we're learning how to do that with therapeutic communication. Nurses are both participants and observers in the therapeutic conversation, and that is exactly what your process recording is developed for you to see that that's accurate, that you are both a participant and observer. Self-awareness of the nurse is vital, okay? You have to know you, keeping focus on the patient and not meeting the needs of yourself. And then so Paplau, a little bit more with the therapeutic relationship. It's important to remember she is known as the mother of psychiatric nursing. She addresses levels of anxiety, interventions to lower anxiety, and aim to improve patients' ability to think and function. You can read that about her. And so behavioral theories that we have Pavlov's. If you remember, I hope you've already learned about Pavlov, and he was the one who had the dog and the ringing of the bell and then the salivating even though there was no food. Watson's behaviorism theory, this is controlling the environment could mold behavior. Skinner's operant conditioning theory, this is a positive and negative reinforcement can shape that behavior. And implications for nursing, this is modifying or replacing behaviors and also behavior management. Modeling, the patient's going to learn through imitation. We talked a little bit about that when we talked about the therapeutic milieu, that modeling. This is a time for us to show the patients how to behave, and then they are going to imitate that. Operant conditioning, this is positive reinforcement to increase desired behaviors. We do this with children, right? We do this. I do this, and not even purposefully thinking operant conditioning, but when I bring my prize bag to class or by getting keys to the classroom, that positive reinforcement is going to assist you guys in wanting to read the material because you know that there could be some kind of reward in it. Systematic desensitization, this is exposing to distressing stimulus in stages. That's, some of you guys may actually do that for your PTSD paper that you're going to be doing, or if you do that or the substance abuse. And by the way, just side note, please be emailing me about that. Aversion therapy, this is punishment. So aversion therapy, this is like there's a negative consequence for it. So a great example of this is Antabuse. Antabuse, though a medication, is a type of aversion therapy because if the patient takes the Antabuse and then later in the evening they drink, they're going to get violently sick. And we'll talk more about that and learn more about that throughout the weeks, but that's aversion therapy. There's a punishment for doing the behavior. And then biofeedback, this is gaining conscious control over unconscious body functions. So cognitive theories, there's a dynamic interplay between individuals and the environment. Thoughts come before feelings and actions. Thoughts about the world and our place in it are based on our own unique perspectives, which may or may not be based in reality. We have to remember that, guys, because some of our patients that are going through relapses in their mental illness may not, their perceptions are not based in reality. So I'm not going to go through the cognitive behavioral therapy and the rational emotive behavioral therapy. I don't have time right now, but make sure you just have an idea of what it is. But what's important, and look on page 31, is common cognitive distortions. These are things like all or nothing thinking, overgeneralization, labeling, mental filter, disqualifying the positive, jumping to conclusions. And they do good examples for you, and you do need to know these. You're going to see them. So make sure you have an understanding of the common cognitive cognitive distortions, and I just don't think I have a choice here. Oh, I only had 3 more slides. Maslow's, I'll just go over this in class, all right? I will do these last 3 slides in class because I really don't want to record a last one, and this part, even though it is short, I just want to talk about it in a little more depth. So when you come to class on Wednesday, just plan on, we'll start with Maslow's, and we're also going to do chapter 22 first. I'm going to get some other recordings done. So, all right, that's it for that. We'll cover this in class.